In this video, we are going to talk about what is virtualization, how virtualization works, cloud computing, like what it is, how it works, what is the use of it. We are also going to talk about Azure Cloud Services, etc. Let's begin. Hello all, my name is Abdurrahman and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about cloud computing, like what it is, how it works. We are also going to talk about Azure. We are also going to talk about virtualization, hyperparameters tuning, how all of them work, why they are used, etc. Now the topic on cloud computing is combined. The first one is virtualization, the second is cloud computing, and the third one is Azure. Now we are going to understand these three things at once because all of them are combined. But one more thing is left, that is hyperparameter tuning. So it's not related to the cloud computing. We are going to talk about the cloud. We are going to talk about the hyperparameter tuning at the end. So first of all, let's talk about Azure. I'm going to start with what is Azure, how it works, etc. Now Azure is from Microsoft, like AWS, Amazon Web Services is from Amazon, GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, is from Google. Now what are they? First of all, we are going to work with Azure. So let's talk about Azure. Microsoft Azure, often referred to as Azure, is a cloud computing platform operated by the Microsoft that provides the access, management, and development of the applications, model building, and services API around the world through the distributed data centers. Now, I'll tell you that Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform. Now, what do you mean by the cloud computing? Right? With the word computing means computer, you may be thinking, and cloud, all of them, right? Now, you may be thinking that with the word cloud computing means sharing data from one place to another online. Okay, not through the cars or other, not through the transport. We are just sending the data from the one place to another on the computers. You may be thinking that what the cloud computing? No, that's wrong. Cloud computing means something where we can store the data. Now, what is the use of Azure? Now, the use of Azure is just to store the data. Now, there are several other things such as AWS and GCP where we can store our data. But here we are going to work with the Azure. That's why I'm going to talk about the Azure. Now, with the word cloud computing, what it does is it's going to store a database. Now, for example, let's say that you are building a model. You have a startup, a small company startup. The company name is XYZ. Okay, now we have built that company and you have the employees around 100. Then your employees are increasing. You are seeing the success in your startup is successful and your company is working pretty much good, and a lot of people are being hired for your company. Now you're helping a lot of people with that company, through that company. Like for example, like Amazon is helping a lot of people by giving the resources to the people. Like for example, if I order something, Amazon is going to give us something, right? That we ordered. That's how, for example, that's how I started. Now here what Amazon is doing, let's take the example of Amazon. Now, when I order something, when you first download the Amazon on your phone, mobile, or if you log in, if you open that website on your laptop, the first thing it's going to ask is how to. It's going to ask is login. You have to log in or sign up. While logging in and signing up, what happens is it's going to store the data. Where it's going to store? We need a place to store the data. Now you are a person, okay, you are living alone in your home. Now every day you are going at a place and collecting a lot of diamonds, right? That a lot of people don't know that. This is just an example, okay? Now what you do is, for getting rich, you collect those diamonds and come home and then hide them somewhere else in your home. But you're going for you're going daily for collecting the diamonds, right? But whenever you're going, you're not going to take the diamonds that you have collected already, right? Because it may be stolen by some people. Anything can happen with those diamonds. Okay, that's why what you're going to do is you're not going to do that. You're going to just store that in on your home. Now you have collected thousands of diamonds, but you have your house is pretty much small. You have to keep some other things. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to do all of the stuff in your home itself. Now where will you store those diamonds? Now you have to build your house some more big. You have to extend your house. It's going to make money, and then you have to take the maintenance of your home, do all of those stuff, right? It's going to take waste your time, and it's going to waste a lot of money. Now here what we do is, for example, we are starting up a company. Now for storing the data, for example, I have a small company around 100 persons, and 100 persons are working in my company. Now what you need is, I need a server where I can store the data, that whatever my employees have done, whatever they have worked, I have to store the data, right? So that's why I'm going to buy a small hard disk or a server where I can store the data. But right now I am just having the 100. Now day by day my employees are increasing, and right now I have around 1 million people working in my company, example. Okay, now here 1 million people are working in my company, so they are providing some resources to other people while working in our company. They are doing all of the stuff. Then they should have a place to store the data, right? Now I have a small server, but I have to extend that server, right? Now what I have to do is, for that server I have to bring another server. I should have a room, all of the stuff I need. But here, instead of doing that, what Microsoft, AWS, Amazon, and Google, what they have done is, some other companies, what they have done is, they they purchased a big land, a case of land, and then they built something called as data centers, where you will be having a millions of servers, millions of TBs of data. You are going to, where you can store the data, right? We are going to have a place. Now when I open some company, I don't want to buy a server, or I don't want to do the maintenance, all of those stuff. It's pretty much simple. What I have to do is, I have to call the Microsoft. I have to sign in on the Microsoft company Azure, and then what I have to do is, whatever the data that I have to pay for the Microsoft. Okay, and then what we can do is, with the Microsoft, what we have to pay, and it's going to give us this space where we can store our data. Now for example, I'm going to show that here. Okay, wait. I'm going to show you how Azure, Microsoft Azure is going to look on the web. So this is how it's going to look. This is portal.azure.com/home. So you have to create an account in Microsoft, and then you're going to log in the Azure. So this is how our home page is going to look. Now here I have to pay. When you're working in some company, then it's going to pay you for the Azure, because you're working specifically for that company. Now Azure, AWS, and GCP, Google Cloud Services. So those are the places where we can store our data, where we can create our model. Okay, that's what the cloud computing is. So that's why now there are a lot of types of servers. Now what the companies such as Microsoft Azure, AWS, Amazon, and Google, GCP, Google Cloud Platforms, what they are going to do is, they are going to purchase acres of land, and then they are going to set up the data centers there. Now they need the maintenance for that. Now we don't have anything, right? We just need to pay to the Microsoft, and it's going to provide the data. Now there will be a lot of backup data centers they are going to have. For example, they are going to have that in the US, in India, in Germany, in UK. It's a lot of places they are going to have. Now there will be no only one data center, there will be 5 to 6 just for backups. Okay, then there will be a lot of things. Okay, so at first only they are going to build a huge amount of data centers where they can store the data, where they can store the data of other companies. They are going to be secure. Now the data sets that are not data centers need the cooling, they need the maintenance, they need all of those stuff. That's why they are going to pay. That's why they are going to collect the money from other companies, so that the people can so that those companies can store their data in those servers. Now there will be government servers, there will be all of those stuff. So we'll be talking about that later on. So this is what cloud computing, where we can store the data. Now basically guys, here what happens is when I log in on the portal.azure.com, whatever it is, microsoft.com, when I log in there, it's going to give us type of website where we can just log in. Now here, as I said it, that if you go to my machine learning with Python series, there you will be seeing TensorFlow installation, right? Virtual machine installation. There what I do is I will be using two things at a time, that is Windows and there is Ubuntu software. So at a time I can use that. So that's what the so that's how Azure is going to work. What they do is they are going to collect the data from our. Now for example, I'm going to show that here. Let's open that portal.azure.com here right now, and as you can see here, this is how it's going to create. Now we have to create a resource. After that we are going to create a lot of things. For example, we can create a SQL server also. Now it's that's not like we have to create. Now when creating a SQL server, for example, right, you have to install the MySQL, do all of those stuff, but with Azure you don't have to do anything. Just click on the create, you just type how many GBs of data you want, you just need to do that, right? So we are also going to open the Windows. We can also open here the Windows 10, Windows 7 with the Microsoft Azure. So that's what the cloud computing is. Now let's come back to virtualization, what it is. If I talk about virtualization, virtualization is the main base of the cloud computing. Now, if there is no virtualization, then there is no cloud computing. So, if I talk about what is virtualization, then virtualization is the creation of a virtual version of something such as an operating system, a server, a storage device, or a network. Now, in the Azure, what we can do is we can create a SQL server where we can store the data, or we just create a storage account where we can storage device where we just can save here the data. Now here what it's going to do is it's going to transfer the data from my laptop to the Azure. Now just not with the Azure, it's going to share with the AWS. If we pay for AWS also, with the Google Cloud Services, if we pay Google Cloud Platform, if we pay for the Google Cloud Platform for storing our data, but here just we are going to work with the Azure. Now if whenever I want to store some data, I have to pay monthly for the Azure, and then it's going to take the data that I have given, and then it's going to transfer my data to its data center, so that my data center should be so that my data should be safe now, and I should not have the problems of space, all of the stuff. Now that's how the virtualization and cloud computing works. Now, virtualization in envelopes can be achieved through tools such as Docker and Kubernetes. Docker is a containerization platform that allows for the creation of isolated environments for the applications to run in. Kubernetes is an organization tool that manages to multiple containers and their resources. So we'll be talking about these containers later on. Now together these tools can create a virtual environment for machine learning models to run in, making it easier to deploy, manage and model the scales. Now for example, if I minimize this one, as you can see here on the screen that here I have right now Windows 11 already installed with my laptop. Okay, if I want to use the if I want to use here the Ubuntu. Now if I want to use the Windows 10, I can use here, right? I can use here without shutting down. But in Windows 10 we can do the custom settings, right? What we can do is we don't want any apps, we just want the SQL server for the Windows. What we can do is we can open here the virtual machine, Oracle virtual machine, and then where there just we can set up for the Windows 10, right? Where we can just where we have to just with the where we have to work just with the SQL. Now here this is what the Azure is going to do here. What it does is it's going to create a virtual environment. As I said you that without the virtual environment, cloud computing is not going to work. Now at the end, if I talk about the summary of cloud computing in simple words, then cloud computing is a technology that allows you to access computing resources like servers, storages, databases, softwares, and networking over the internet instead of having managing and maintain them locally. As given the example of a company, what I have to do is I have to maintain them. We have to store the data sets at a cool place. If you have seen the data centers in your life from the inside, then it's going to pretty much cool inside, because what we have to do is what they do is they are going to put the conditioner air conditioners, all of this stuff AC for the data centers should be cool, because they are working 24 into 7. And what we have to do is they have to clean that so that the dust won't appear in that area, right? So what happens is, in the data, if you have inside a CPU, whenever you buy a computer or if you open a CPU, in that one you see a motherboard, something called as motherboard. Now in that one you will be seeing a small types of wire. You won't be able to see that. So those are the wires. So what they do is, if you put any dust on that, they are going to work, they are not going to work. Now when a pipe is going, example, when a pipe is going and from that pipe the water is going, if I can't if I put something, if I stand on that pipe, what's going to happen? The water is not going to pass from one place to another. So that's how the wires, in the wires also it's going to happen same thing. So they have to maintain the data centers, all of those stuff. That's why a lot of companies don't use their local server, because they have to maintain the waste of money, all of those stuff. That's why they are going to use the AWS, Microsoft Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, etc. Now this is what the cloud computing and the virtualization. Now let's talk about what is hyperparameters tuning in machine learning operations. Hyperparameters tuning in MLOps is like finding the best settings for a machine learning model to perform well. Just like you have to adjust settings on a camera to take better pictures. Now for example, you went somewhere else, okay, in your country itself or foreign country, wherever you went. Now there, what if you find something good, you are going to take a picture with that, right? You are just going to take a picture with yourself, or just you are going to take the picture of that. And while taking the picture, you are not going to blur your face, right? After taking the picture, you are not going to blur your face, right? You're just going to clear that. So like that also, hyperparameters tuning is what it's going to do is, while creating a model, it's going to perform pretty much well for the machine learning models. So that's what the hyperparameters tuning. Again, if I talk about that, hyperparameters are the parameters that cannot be learned from the data during the training, but must be set before the training begins. Now while the picture, after taking the picture, what you can do is you can edit that specific image. But here we cannot do that in the machine learning operations. If after creating, or while after creating, we can edit the machine learning model. Before doing that, before training that data set, only we have to train that, we have to use here the hyperparameters tuning. So that's what the hyperparameters tuning. So anyhow guys, that's all for this video. I hope you understand the concept of cloud computing, virtualization, and hyperparameters tuning. These Azure, all of these things are pretty much simple, but they are, all of them are, while understanding all of them are simple, but while working with them or while understanding them, they will be pretty much confusing. So that's all for this video. I hope you liked this video and enjoyed watching this video, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my videos, and I will see you all in another tutorial. And thank you and goodbye.